Hi everyone and welcome to today's session. My name is Gemma and I'm from the XpoNorth Digital team. Today's session is titled Digital Audit and it's great to see you all and I hope you're all well. XpoNorth Digital is Highlands and Islands Enterprises mechanism for specialist digital support for the creative and heritage economies across the Highlands and Islands region. And the project is delivered by the Ironworks venue. This workshop is part of HIE's Northern Innovation Hub, which is designed to build on and accelerate business innovation, and it's funded through the Inverness and Highlands City Region deal. I am now going to pass over to Tim Wright, who is our fabulous digital specialist from the XpoNorth Digital team.
Well, hello, everybody. Great to see you here. As Gemma said, my name's Tim Wright. I'm one of the specialists that work with XpoNorth Digital. There are a whole group of us that bring a range of different experiences and expertise, and I encourage you to review the types of service that are available from XpoNorth Digital, because I think you'll find they are extremely useful things to grab hold of. So today's session is about dental implants. It's about digital audit. So if it's digital audit is what you're looking for, you're in the right place. I should explain some of the origins of this. This emerges from an exercise that we did a number of years ago, where we were intending to provide people with mechanisms of analyzing their digital provision, how they were using digital tools, and give them that opportunity that once they'd done that analysis to find gaps in what they were doing, and then be able to approach XpoNorth Digital to assist them in resolving some of those, offering them ways out. Now, it was originally in a workshop format, and clearly this is not a workshop in the traditional sense, in that we're not all sitting in the same room and I can't hand out workbooks and we can't work together in groups quite as effectively as we would in the traditional manner. But to try and make it a bit more interactive, because I will be using slides and I don't want those to form a barrier between us, but to try and make it interactive, as Jem said, if you've got questions as we go, do put those questions into the chat and we'll try and answer those as we go, just to try and make it a little bit interactive. We've got a decent amount of time to work with, and so I'm hoping that we get a good opportunity to have a chat at the end, and we can answer any specific questions or general questions that you've got then, and have a bit of discussion amongst ourselves. So what I'm going to try and do now is share my screen. We'll see how well that works, so stick with me. Now, can everybody see that slide?
Yes, we can, Tim.
Fantastic. That's a good start then. Okay, so I'm pleased with that. Now, so what we're going to go through, I'll give you an agenda so that you've got a sense of how we're going to work through this over the next 90 minutes or so. I want to talk about why you want to undertake, or what the purpose of an audit is, why specifically you might want to do this type of audit for your organization or your company or whatever it is that you want to run the rule over. I want to talk specifically about what the benefits of digital approaches are within a business context or an organizational context, because they're key to understanding where the wins come from and how an audit can assist in accessing those. I'm going to talk a little bit about segmenting your organization, which sounds a bit posh and highfalutin. It's not really. What we're going to talk about there is how you break your organization down into a series of functions and activities, because that's a good way of identifying digital opportunities within it. So we'll go through that. Now, I'm not going to propose to give you a brilliant overview of every digital opportunity that there is out there at the moment, because clearly that would take forever, and I wouldn't even pretend to have knowledge of all of those things. But just to try and get your analytical and auditing juices going, I want to just prompt you a little bit with some thoughts about some of the digital things that you might want to do in those different segments of your organization, just to get you thinking about what the possibilities are. And then I want to run through 3 separate approaches to doing these audits. One I refer to as a very quick and dirty, and it's a very, very simple thing that you can do, and it works quite well for particularly smaller organizations. Then I'm going to go into a slightly different one, which is what I've referred to as a reinvention model. So we're going to use a framework that will help you think about digital from the point of view of changing your business model completely because of the opportunities that digital may present now that perhaps weren't there when you first started what you were doing. And then the final piece, we're going to do a more rigorous based approach, which you can do as a group or individually, and take time over within your organization to come up with a more strategic set of conclusions about how you might want to apply digital approaches within your organization. And then, as I say, at the end of that, hopefully we'll have a good bit of time left so that we can have some questions and discussions as we go. I will say when we get to the more rigorous approach to audit, we've got workbooks that go with that that were produced when we first started doing these audits, and I'm happy to share those with you if anybody wants one once we've gone through it and you get a sense of how it works. If you want any of those, we can arrange for those to come to you. So with no further ado, let's get on to the first one. Then what's the purpose of doing a digital audit in the first place? Well, the reason for actually doing it formally in an audit way is that by undertaking a process like this, you'll actually do it. Everybody that, as they say, the road to hell is paved with best intentions. Lots of people think that they should be looking at what they're doing digitally and assessing whether there are things they should be doing better, but it's generally a kind of pub conversation or round the water cooler conversation. If you actually create an audit process, you will actually do it because you are specifically undertaking an activity. So it brings an agency to you to actually undertaking it. Doing it in a process as well, it brings a bit of rigor. It gives you a mechanism of actually transferring what you've understood to others, and it makes you go through it in a more complete way. It can make what would otherwise be a very complex process, apparently, that can put people off, a much more manageable one because you've got some structures and frameworks to work on. And fundamentally, it's about identifying some opportunities for yourself. And why would you want to do digital audits? Why are you interested in it? Well, there's several reasons why I think you should do it. One is that digital is a moving feast. It's constantly evolving. So if you do a digital audit this year, you probably ought to do it next year and the year after that, because there will be new opportunities emerging all of the time. So by virtue of the fact that it's a constantly evolving space, it's important that you keep abreast of it and make sure that you're seizing all of those opportunities. And obviously, competitors, if you're in a competitive sector and that you're competing in a business sense, your competitors may well be doing this and stealing a march on you and taking your clients and customers away. And the other piece is there's an element of assurance that you might want to do this for, that it gives you a sense that you have brought some rigor. You can also share this with partners and clients and customers to give them assurance that you're doing things in a very business-like way. So there's the main kind of reasons why you want to do digital audits. Now, one of the things about thinking about where digital benefits come in, they can seem to be very, very amorphous, but I think myself that there's probably 5 ways in which digital can bring benefits to an organization. So digital approaches can give you additional resilience within an organization. So that might be bolstering your cybersecurity. It might be, for example, as many of us understood during COVID and lockdown periods, our ability to be able to utilize tools like this conferencing tool, Zoom, was transformational, because without it, we would not have been able to carry on in many circumstances. Many businesses would have gone to the wall. So digital can introduce resilience into your organization, and you can do that ahead of time rather than necessarily have to do it in response to circumstances like we found with COVID. Digital can make things faster. So it can make processes faster. It can make laborious manual interventions very, very quick, and it can iterate them very, very quickly in multiple occasions. So there is speed to be gained through doing things digitally. They can give you expansion as well. So they can give you the ability to perhaps reach further. So that might be geographically speaking, taking digital approaches. You may be able to reach a wider client or customer group. You may be able to expand by virtue of the fact that you could take on additional customers or offer additional services that you couldn't do if you didn't utilize a digital approach. It can be cheaper as well. Automation that can be driven through digital change can drive down the incremental cost of transactions quite significantly, or replacing laborious, time-consuming staff time on activities with a systematized approach can be very, very effective in cost savings. And the other thing to bear in mind, I suppose, is that if you do start using digital things, you start creating a record. You are creating a kind of ledger of transactions, which you can then interrogate, that can be fantastically insightful. So you can learn things about your processes, you can learn things about your customers, you can learn things about all sorts of activities that you would not have done if you hadn't had that systematized approach. And that insight can in itself drive change and bring advantages. Now, all of those things effectively can drive what I refer to, because I am a sad old management consultant at the end of the day, is what I call margin. So that's the little bit of additional margin that can lead to greater profits, better cash flow, and more effective operation. And at the end of the day, for most businesses at least, this is certainly what we're in the that's what we're looking for. And if you're an organization that is not necessarily competitively operating in a marketplace, you might be a museum or other type of organization. If you can make your finances work better by reducing your costs, which is another way of looking at margins, that is an advantageous thing to do. So these are the ways that you can think of digital opportunities being available to you. And I'd encourage you to think about that lens when you're thinking about how you can apply digital tools within your organization. Can it make it faster? Can it allow you to expand further? Will it be cheaper? Will it create resilience? Or will you develop additional insight? So that's a good lens to think about all of those digital possibilities for your organization. So this idea that I was talking about of segmentation. So it's a fancy word, but all I'm really thinking about here is encouraging you to think about your organization as a series of functions and activities, discrete functions and activities. Now, they're all interlinked, of course, because they're all part of the whole. So that might be finance, it might be payroll, it might be marketing, it might be sales, it might be manufacturing. Each of these is a separate and discrete function, but they all come together. Now, in an organization of a significant size, these might be undertaken by a department or a group of people. In a small organization, a sole trader, it might be all undertaken by a single person, but they are all activities that you will undertake. And so if you can segment your organization into those activity groups, into those functions, then you have an ability to consider the application of digital technologies discretely into each one. Now, it also may mean that you can integrate them more effectively through digital use, but it's a good perspective to think of an organization when you're auditing it for the purposes of thinking about introducing digital excellence in any of them. So how do we go about doing that? Now, there's lots of ways of doing it. And you can just do it quite simply by writing down in your own, on the back of a piece of paper, what you think the activities that you undertake or that your organization undertakes quite simply. But there are more formal ways of doing it. And here's one example of it. So this is Porter's value chain. It's a very widely used framework. It's used for lots of things, but it's all about the idea of breaking an organization down into its functioning parts, its value creating parts in Porter's mind. And as you can see, again, what he suggests with his value chain is that if you can get these elements all working effectively, individually and collectively, you create better margin. So that it's used in that way. But as you can see, he's brought a rule over an organization that sets out a series of discrete individual sets of activities. Now, you can do it in that very rigorous way. I sort of adopted this to a certain extent in putting together the more rigorous audit method that we're going to look at later on. And in essence, it looks at effectively 9 separate activities. So as you can see here, you've got administration, human resources, but you can segment yours as you see fit. But this might be a useful framework for you to think about. As I say, in some organizations, these things might be undertaken by groups and segments or sections within an organization, but in smaller organizations, they may be undertaken by 1 or 2 or 3 people across the whole organization. Okay. Now, I said I was going to talk about some of the digital things that are going on out in the world at the moment, with a view to not giving you a complete oversight of everything, because I can't do that, but at least to get you thinking about some of the possibilities and opportunities that might be there, so that it will help you get your processes of undertaking your own individual audit very much more easily. However, there is an elephant in the room that I need to refer to, and it would be foolish of me not to refer to it. And that is the extraordinarily topical subject of AI, so artificial intelligence. Now, it's an extraordinarily hot topic at the moment, and it is bleeding into almost every business activity that you can imagine. Now, depending on your perspective, AI represents the end of the world as we know it, or the solution to all of our problems. I think the truth is probably somewhere in the middle on this. And AI is here. It's here to stay. It's not going away. And it is so rapidly becoming part of day-to-day business activity. I could integrate AI as an option for pretty much any one of those functional elements of a business today. And so I want to introduce you to one tool that will perhaps help you think about AI as a technical piece for your, potentially for your organization. And I want to introduce you to this site of there's an AI for that.com. So many of you will remember the expression there's an app for that. When a few years ago, everybody was talking about apps. Now it's AI applications. And one of the things we're going to be doing is talking about the idea of discovering the digital opportunities that are out there for you. And I think this is a good way into AI if you're interested in it. So I'm going to try and change the screen that I'm sharing with you. So bear with me a second, see if I can stop that one and then share another screen. Hold on. Right. Now, can everybody see my there's an AI for that?
Yep, can see that, Tim.
You see that? Right. So this is a fascinating little site that brings together a collection of awareness of all of the various AI applications that are out there. So let's say, for example, you're interested in AI for translation. I can just type in translation, and it will immediately give me a whole series of AI tools that are working on translation in one way, shape, or form. So you can see this is an extraordinary long list of things that you might want to explore if you're interested in resolving an issue with translation and utilizing AI for that. So I introduced that to you simply as a way of one of the options that you've got for discovering what's out there, and pointing out that AI will form a part of the digital solutions for businesses from here on in until probably I am dead, or AI kills me, of course, which if you've got a dystopian view, it might happen. So I recommend you having a look at this site just for your interest, and also as a place to go once we've undertaken some of that audit. So I'm going to go back to my slides now. Incidentally, has anybody used that particular service at all? Anybody used? No? Okay. Well, there you go. I know where you're going to be going after the end of this workshop then. So if we were thinking about different activities, so if we were going to have a quick whiz through us about some of the things that are going and how you might think about utilizing technology within your organization based on that segmentation. Let's have a quick whiz through some of those segments that we described, those activity groups within an organization, and have a quick think about some of the things that you might want to address. So if we were just thinking about administration and general management, you might be thinking about, well, we could do something around conferencing, or our scheduling's not strong, or we need to collaborate better, or we need to draft our reports quicker. Translate things. We need to do translation more quickly. And we like to be able to link up some of our existing ICT and existing applications that we've got. Well, there's all sorts of stuff out there that can help you with that. So if in the process of your audit, which we're going to come on to, in the process of your audit, you go through your administrative and general management area and say, these are the types of bullet point areas that we need to be working on, that we're not particularly good at, or we're not utilizing digital very, very well, there's stacks of things that you can use. So if you're looking for, collaboration tools, Slack and Basecamp and Trello and these types of things are fantastically useful tools. If you're wanting to link together some of your existing IT applications, Zapier is a terrific thing. ChatGPT, of course, I can stick some form of AI onto every single page here without any difficulty at all. But there's also really quite straightforward things that are readily available that you may not think of as being directly relevant in an organization because they're just so ubiquitous today. But things like Google Docs and those types of tools are readily available to you to solve some of your ICT problems. We then thought about human resources. Okay, so you might be thinking we need to recruit better. We need to do benefits management better. Our payroll could be slicker, or we could be doing our training more effectively. Again, there are endless digital solutions that are available to you in each of these areas, whether it be things like your Sage, or are you all sick to death of hearing the Indeed advert on the radio? And if you're looking for training courses and things, Coursera and Udemy, there are lots and lots and lots of options. So the point I'm making here, I think, as we work our way through this, is that you will have many, many different digital solutions to address each of these bullet points that may come up as a result of your audit. But you can start to understand how that segmentation aspect of a business can be helpful in identifying the specific things that you could do better, or where you're weak, or where you think digital might be able to give you some of that efficiency, some of that speed, some of that growth potential, and some of that data interrogation as well. So if we were thinking about innovation and development, if you wanted to start using computer-aided design or VR and AR, or if you wanted to look externally for solutions through some crowdsourcing, or if you wanted to keep across all of topic areas so that you make sure that you're on top of a particular area that you want to innovate within. There's so many tools that can help you with consolidating tools like Feedly that can keep you aware of stuff. You've got Tiltbrush and Sumerian that will help you with your VR and AR development. And you've got stuff like Tinkercad that allow you to do computer-aided design if you wanted to do that. And there's a range of things here, from very, very sophisticated, expensive, and very specific applications, right the way through to open source things like Tinkercad, for example, which, you don't have to have a sophisticated computer aided design tool within your business. You can make use of Tinkercad and use that to help you come up and shape with three-dimensional designs quite effectively and very cost effectively, because Tinkercad is effectively free. And similarly, if you are looking at your procurement function, you might think that you wanted to go into different suppliers and brokerage sites, or you might be looking at analytics, or maybe you wanted to track the provenance of all of your products right the way through from a point of procuring from a supplier through to your customers, because that may be something that is of importance to them. And you can see things like, blockchain enabled, excuse me, that's my phone ringing, blockchain enabled tracing tools like IBM Food Trust that may be able to provide a solution for you. So the idea here, as you can probably see, is as you break down the activities that you've got within your organization, you can spot opportunities where you think you could be doing better, and there will be opportunities for you. And even in stock and inventory control, there you go. There's an AI for that. So here you go, AI inventory. I'm not recommending any of these products, by the way. I'm simply using them as indicative ones that can give you some idea and sense of the sort of breadth and scale of opportunity that's available to you. Sales and marketing, interestingly, is one of the ones that has been most disrupted by digital tech in the last few years. Again, if you decided that social media targeting was important, if you wanted to improve your copywriting, if your customer relationship management needed to be better, or even if you decided that, your shop in the high street actually really could do with a digital front end and you want to go into online and e-commerce, these are all things that you can think about as opportunities to bring that speed, that expansion, and all of those other elements that digital can bring to you. And again, the emerging area of customer service. Do you want your customers to be helping themselves, and do you want them to be supporting one another? Do you want to introduce chatbots that mean that you don't necessarily have to answer the phone, that you can get chatbots to do these types of things for you? Again, introducing speed, efficiencies, and scalability into an organization by the use of technology. So we can do this through every single step of the way, thinking about changing your business model completely by introducing drop shipping so that you don't hold any stock or inventory at all. There's all sorts of opportunities for applying digital into your business or organization. So I hope that's given you a beginnings of some thoughts about where digital might be able to play a role, and one way of thinking about analyzing your organization to come up with the opportunities. So now I want to get into the specific 3 audit approaches themselves that you might want to make use of. As I say, I've got 3 here. One is what I call the quick and dirty approach. And it is exactly that, very, very straightforward. You can be a little more rigorous with it as you see fit, but it's very, very effective, particularly for smaller organizations, but you can scale it if you want. The reinvention model, which is where you can really start rethinking your business model completely and seeing whether you can transform what you do now into an entirely new model through the use of digital technologies. And then we go look at this rigorous one, the SWOT TOWS analysis. And now many of you will have done SWOT analysis before. It's a very commonly used analytical and auditing tool. Some of you may have extended that into TOWS as well. Some of you may not have, but that's what we plan to do today. And it's that particular rigorous analytical approach that we've got some worksheets for, that if you wanted them, we can make those available to you. And if you let Gems know today, we can make sure that you get those sent to you as a PDF some point next week. So let's have a start off with the quick and dirty approach. Okay, so the quick and dirty approach is what I call pain points approach. So as you might expect, what we're looking for here is a very simple analysis, sitting down and doing some workshopping of what your top 5 pain points are. Now, pain points to me are things, blockages, irritations, inefficiencies. We all know about it. We all encounter them. We all have them. So it might be your purchasing, it might be doing customer support, it might be the end of the month reconciliations. But there are pain points that are the main impediments to you doing more value creation time, more time of earning money, more time of getting more customers in, and more time of doing the stuff that you like and that keeps the business afloat. So what you want to do is prioritize those pain points and better still, cost them if you can. Now, again, it doesn't need to be a sophisticated costing approach. These can be as detailed or as generalized as you want. But the simple things that you want to take into account in terms of costing these things to your business would be the cost of customers lost, the amount of time that you're taking up. This is generally the one that most people like to look at. Very, very time-consuming processes that both costs because of the opportunity cost, but also costs in terms of wages and salaries to do fairly unproductive and sometimes administratively burdensome activities. So you prioritize your pain points. You explore the solutions. Now, there we go. There's an AI for that. So there are lots of ways of exploring solutions, but does anybody on the call make use of any of the AI tools at the moment, whether it be ChatGPT or Bard or anything? Anybody make use of them? No, I'm not sure. Nobody's saying yes, so I'm guessing that may be a no, but it may not be. But let me just illustrate something for you. There's how AI is starting to solve problems. And in a way, this is almost a case in point of where AI has helped me in my day-to-day business. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm going to share another screen. So stick with me a second. Okay, so back in live time. Now, some of you may have come across Bard, some of you may not have, but Bard is one of the many IA tools that are available. It happens to be the one that is run and operated and developed by Google. So here's an example of a digital tool that has helped me in the last little while. And this is an example of how an IA tool may be able to help you if you identify some things that you want to resolve in your organization through the application of technology. So let's say, for example, your scheduling is terrible or your collaboration is terrible. So I can go into my IA app, in this case Bard, and I can say, what tools are available to help with business scheduling and collaboration? You see, even if you're a terrible typist like me, it'll happily help you. So here we go. Let's see what now. And here we are. Look at that. Extraordinary. So Bard's told me there's things like Calendly, Doodle, TimeCamp, and collaboration tools like Slack and Zoom. Extraordinary. I have some answers straight away. So the reason I'm sharing that with you is simply because I think it's a great example of how when you get to the point of trying to find technical solutions and digital solutions to the problems that you're going to identify in your audit, but it's also actually a practical example of a technical solution to a problem, in that I was wondering how I could arrive at some choices to help me develop my scheduling, and the IA tool allowed me to find that solution straight away. So Anybody used Bard before? I'm guessing that's a no. Fair enough. Let's go back to our slides then. Okay, so we explore our solutions. So we've gone through the process of identifying some of our top 5 pain points. And we have done some costing for that. We've looked at some solutions. We've tried to look at for what solutions there are for that. And then we can assign some cost to implementing that solution. So that might be the fees of using some technical solution, it might be the training costs, it might be the process of the change management. But if you can put some costing against that, and then costing against what the pain is costing your organization, you have some metrics that can allow you to assess whether the technical change is a good one or a bad one. I should also say, in terms of exploring solutions, one of the approaches that you could have is you could come to XpoNorth Digital. And we often help clients that come to us with an issue or a challenge that they are trying to resolve. And we can look at digital solutions that can help them resolve that issue in the most effective way. And the sort of stuff that we would do is look at what the costs to the business are, and then also assess and evaluate some of the costs associated with the solutions that we suggest, and give some opportunity for that client to then move forward with that. So you don't have to rely on an AI tool to find your solutions for you. You can actually come and speak to some humans at XpoNorth Digital, and we'll be happy to help you with those types of things. So let me move on to that. So that's my quick and dirty audit. So as you can see, very quick, very dirty, but can be tremendously successful and tremendously effective. Probably more effective in a small organization than a larger one, but you can imagine if you wanted to, you could run that pain point exercise across an organization in multiple different groups and locations and come up with priorities. You could also potentially find opportunities for finding common solutions across multiple areas of your organization. Now I want to go on to a reinvention model. Okay, so this is the second of the 3 models that I said we're going to have a quick look at. And this model is what is referred to as the future backwards. Okay, so we're looking into the future. And I have to credit this to the people that created it. So this approach was created by an organization called Cynefin, which is run by an old pal of mine, Dave Snowden. And this is a framework that can be used in lots and lots of different contexts. It has all sorts of applications, but here we're going to use it for the purposes of identifying digital opportunity. Now, it's what we would call a thought experiment. It's intended to be a very liberating and freeing mechanism of identifying opportunities. And if you want to learn more about the practicalities of running this and facilitating it and the approaches that you can use and where it can be used quite apart from a digital audit, then I encourage you to go and have a look at the Cynefin website. They have lots of open source resources there that you can draw upon, and it's a fascinating area. There's lots of other stuff that you'll find there as well. But the reason that I've used these little hexagonal shapes on the screen is because typically the way these exercises are done is they're a group work session using these type of hexes on the wall in the usual management consulting way to help us work our way through it. But in essence, what you're doing is imagining a utopian future for your organization. Now, why is this an interesting and liberating approach? Well, commonly what we tend to do when we think about where we are as an organization and where we might want to get to, if we start at where we are, we will invent reasons for why we can't get to where we would like to get to. So we've all done it. We've sat around and said, well, why don't we do this? And somebody will pipe up and say, well, we can't do that because of that. Or we couldn't do this. So the idea of the future backwards approach is that you can free yourself from those constraints because you define the steps are, you define your current state. And then you define a utopian state of your organization, and you start working backwards to your current state. And you can use fictional things in order to, if you reach any blockages in working your way back to the current state. And in doing this, you can invent and imagine and create a completely new path to moving your organization forward. Now, if you think about this from a digital standpoint, it's a very interesting thing to take your current organization, what it does, how it does it, and then say, wouldn't it be great if we could do this like this? So it might be that, so we had this idea of drop shipping earlier on. So instead of having a big warehouse full of stock that you have to turn over, you might say, wouldn't it be great if we never had to handle stock at all? We were still the front end selling this stuff, but we never had to see it. We never had to handle it. We never had to store it. We never had to ship it. All we did was sell it. Now, that might be your utopia state, and it's a completely different position from where you might be now. But you then have the opportunity to start working backwards. And oftentimes, there may well be digital technical solutions that can allow you to make that leap from your current state to a utopian one. So the idea of thinking the unthinkable, which is a terrible cliche for anybody that's a management consultant, but thinking the unthinkable is what the future backwards approach is about. So it's a conceptual thought experiment that you can undertake, which will liberate your thinking from where you are to where you might want to be, and find technical and digital solutions that allow you to move from one to another. So that's a nicely kind of imaginary and super creative way of thinking about it. And as I say, it's one that is particularly good if you really want to reimagine and reinvent your business into something different for a digital age. The great example, I guess, for me is many, many years ago, I was a musician. And back then, there was only one way of getting your music recorded and to your customers and clients and fans. And that was you had to get signed. There was no other way. Now, obviously, digital technologies have totally disrupted that space. And it's perfectly possible now for bands to never be signed, but still manage to get their music recorded and out to all of their customers and fans. And that is entirely as a result of digital innovation. So the whole point of the future backwards idea is to think of those transformational opportunities that may have emerged since you founded your business to where we are now. So let's move on to this third audit approach, which might be one that's more familiar to you and might look like a more rigorous audit to you than the ones that have gone before. But this is what we call the SWOT TOWS approach. Now, many of you, I'm sure, will have undertaken SWOT analysis exercises in the past. They're very commonly used, very, very well understood. It's this idea of examining your organization for its strengths and weaknesses and the opportunities and threats that it faces. So the strengths and weaknesses, of course, are very internally facing. They're things that you in your organization can identify and grapple with and address and change. The opportunities and threats are external things which you respond to. So you position yourself in relation to those things that you identify through a SWOT analysis. And of course, you can undertake a SWOT analysis of your organization from a digital standpoint. And what I've got here, this is just one of the pages from the workbook that I was referring to earlier on, which is the digital SWOT analysis tool that allows people to work through a standard SWOT analysis for their organization, but taken from a digital standpoint. So as you see here, in terms of the guidance, it tells you that, you're looking from a strengths point of view, you are particularly focusing on your digital strengths. Okay, you're not doing this broadly across your whole organization. can if you so wish, but for a digital audit, you're thinking about this specifically from a digital point of view. You can also look at your weaknesses as well from a digital standpoint. So things that you don't do well digitally or don't do digitally at all, but might be advantageous to do so. And then the opportunities and threats, again, you're looking at digital opportunities and the digital threats. So just illustrated here with a couple of examples, obviously. So something you do well digitally, that might be your payroll. Something you don't do well digitally might be your marketing. And the opportunities, well, it might be that e-commerce has suddenly become entirely acceptable in your sector. And it's an opportunity that you could step into. Similarly, a threat might be that changes to digital tax make what you do very, very problematic in the way that you're doing it, or GDPR, perhaps that really threatened the way or made it difficult for you to process your customers' data in the way that you used to. So you undertake a standard SWOT analysis, but specifically from a digital perspective. And as you might imagine, we can do this for each of those functional areas within the organization, those segments that we've talked about. Okay, so here's just another page. In this case, we're looking at the operations. So you can do this at either a whole organization level, or you can do it in that segmented level. I would always encourage you to do it at a segmented level. Even if you're a very small organization, these are discrete activities, and there are often discrete digital solutions for those specific activities. And there are often ways that you can take those digital solutions and plug them together to make a more holistic approach to this. But the analysis process is a useful one. What I would suggest is that in the process of doing this, you create a hierarchy of the strengths and hierarchy of weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, so that you can then rank all of these things and consolidate them together. Now, you can stop at just a SWOT analysis if you wish, and bear in mind that SWOTs can give you all sorts of insight. They can, in and of themselves, give you hints and ideas to what your next step should be, how you want to respond to the things that you've discovered through the analysis. They can also give you really good hints about best practice. So if you're doing something particularly well from a digital standpoint, you can analyze that as to why it's going well. You can also look at lessons learned as well. So there's lots of things that you can take out of a standard SWOT analysis process that can be useful for you from a digital context. But it can become even more insightful if you're looking to take this to a strategic level, so that you are really starting to really think about the strategic positioning of your organization from a digital standpoint. And we can do that by extending this into what's known as the SWOT TOWS analysis. Okay. Now, as you can probably see, looking at this, you can see that all we've done is taken the stuff from your SWOT analysis and arranged it over the top of a 4-quadrant square here. So you've got your strengths, your internal weaknesses, because remember, the S and the W, the strengths and weaknesses are internal things that you can deal with, that you can change and you can address. And then the external opportunities, external threats, and the top 2 boxes. Now, these boxes intersect, and at each box where they intersect, it has different implications for you from a strategic point of view. So let's have a quick squizzy at each one of those. What we want to do from this is, how do you make the most of your strengths? How do you circumvent those weaknesses? How can you capitalize on the opportunities? And what's the best way to manage some of those threats? So let's have a look at these things here. So let's just step back there. So the SO, so the strengths and opportunities intersection box, wrong way. There you'll be developing strategies that use your strengths to maximize the opportunities, okay? The ST box, because it's the intersection of the external threats and your internal strengths, you're looking at developing and brainstorming strategies that use the strengths that you've got, that you've established and you've identified to minimize the threats that exist out there. So if we were using that example that we had earlier, where we were thinking about digital or tax going digital, and your internal strengths were that you had a really, really good, well in place digital finance tool. That is the way that you can address that particular external strength, by building on that, deepening that, and extending that to deal with it. At the WO, where you have the opportunities and your weaknesses intersecting, you're looking at strategies that minimize the weakness by taking advantage of the opportunities, okay? And by extension, the WT is where strategies you develop minimize the weaknesses and avoid the threats. Now, as you can see, that's a pretty rigorous and demanding approach, but it can be tremendously insightful, because if you've undertaken your SWOT analysis and from a digital standpoint, it develops your digital strategies in response to all of those opportunities and threats that exist there. It is a time-consuming process, and of course you can do it either at an operational level or a segmented level, or you can do it right across an organization. But what you will develop is useful insights, and you can begin to plan from this for digital transformations within your organization from a very informed standpoint. So I'm going to just recap, okay, and the things that we've talked about so far. We're saying that digital opportunities can provide you with lots of opportunities, and we know what those are. So the lens that you explore digital opportunities through is looking for faster, cheaper approaches, those that give you resilience or insight, and also that can provide you with opportunities for expansion. We know that it's an incredibly rapidly moving space, so this is something I think that you should review regularly, because things change very, very quickly, and this is a process that you should undertake, I think, annually, because things move so quickly. And you can audit these things annually, if you wish, in one of three ways, or all three ways, depending on which is the most appropriate for you. The quick way, the very transformative way, if you want to reimagine your organization, or do this strategic approach, which gives you that ability to develop longer standing strategies for moving your organization on in a digital way. And remember, the purpose of doing this is to make your organization better. You want those margins. It's a margin either to generate profit in the instance of an organization that is for profit. For other organizations, it may be for managing your budget more effectively and making it go further. So identifying the savings that allow you to do that. And my final piece of advice is, don't panic about this stuff. You know, this is not going to go away. It will always be there. And these approaches are intended to make it a much more manageable process for you to evaluate and step into better use of digital tools within your organizations. These are three approaches that are all slightly different, but they are all very, very doable. They don't require any specialist knowledge or specialist skills. They are functional tools that are intended to make what would otherwise appear to be a fairly challenging, difficult, and complex process a much more straightforward one. And as I also said, don't be afraid to speak to XpoNorth Digital if you need some help or assistance with this, or if when you're trying to identify digital solutions to problems that you've identified within your organization, we can assist you with that if your AI tools don't come up with the right answer for you. So what I wanted to do is stop talking for a while, because this is meant to be a workshop rather than me just present to you. Now, you can see that there are workshop exercises there that had we all stood in the room together, we could have undertaken together. We can talk about those in a sense of what you might think of off the top of your head that might be the things that you would put into those analysis workshop sessions if you wanted to do that. Or I'm happy to take any other questions or anything that comes out of this that has prompted you to think about. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can stop pointing or showing you these slides, because I'm sure you're sick to death of those slides already. So off the back of that, has anybody got any questions or thoughts, reflections, problems with what I have shared with you thus far? Don't all shout at once.
Hi, Tim. It's Jenny here.
Hello, Jenny. How are you doing?
Not bad. You're going to laugh at me in a minute here, but
I won't.
Google Bard.
I promise.
I'd never thought to use it to identify different AI tools that are out there for the purposes of what I'm looking for.
Yep.
I've asked it some daft lassie questions in the past, like what's the postcodes list for a particular region, but I've never thought of using it to identify different products and services that are out there, because it's changing all the time and I can't keep track.
Yeah, I have to say, I mean, I could have. There is always a temptation with any kind of digital conversation to begin and carry on and end with AI at the moment. But it is an extraordinarily powerful tool. And for each of those areas within an organization, pretty much every function that takes place in an organization, AI has potentially a role to play. So it is the kind of a Swiss Army knife of business solutions at the moment. But I thought it's kind of hard to keep across all of the digital tools that are out there. You never will. There are hundreds of them. But as a starting point, if you were to identify that, that to use the example I did, scheduling in our organization is shockingly bad. We need to find a better solution, and I'm sure there's a digital one. Now, clearly, you could come and talk to me or come and talk to XpoNorth, but actually, it's perfectly legitimate and surprisingly effective as a first starting point to just go onto one of those AI bots and say, tell me what's a really good technical tool to help with scheduling. And as you could probably see, I know we didn't stay on that page for that long, but it was actually quite a decent overview. I wouldn't have criticized that overview that it gave at all. So as a starting point, it's tremendously effective and useful. So we were demonstrating, we were sort of to use the software developers expression, eating our own dog food here, because what I'm telling you is that there are technical solutions to problems, and if the problem is I want to try and identify a technical solution, here's a technical solution to finding your technical solution.
That's perfect.
So it works as quite a good example, and I know it may be, for some people, very, very familiar, and some people use AI all day, every day, but there's probably some people on this conference who've probably never ever seen it done, and they might go, oh, really? Is that all you do? Is it really that straightforward? No, well, yeah, it is, actually. Yeah. It doesn't always get it right, but on some of those things, it can be very, very useful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I must admit, I've used Google Bard really almost like a toy, just playing with it to see what it can do and what sorts of things I can ask it, and how long it takes before I can break it so that the answers are utterly ridiculous and useless.
A lot of people, I mean, it's already incredibly powerful in marketing and any kind of writing exercise. So if you need to draft a report, even if it's just a working document so that you're not staring at a blank screen, they can be fantastically powerful time savers. But in a marketing context, their ability to generate imagery and useful blog posts or useful social media posts on a topic very, very rapidly is extraordinary. And these are things that some people find time consuming, a pain, but they're things that they think that they need to do, or probably do need to do. And these are tools that can help you with that. So again, if you're using that audit, if you were auditing a function and said, and you just used the quick and dirty approach, which was, what's my pain point here? It might be, Christ, I have to write a blog every week. Use AI. You know, it may not be the finished article, but it'll give you 500 words in a few seconds. And if you then, you know, tweak that and adjust it and chuck a couple of graphics in it, there's your blog. That's your pain point all but gone.
Yeah, don't tell Ian that you told me that. Thanks for that.
No problem at all. Any other reflections, questions, problems, queries at all?
I've got a reflection, I guess.
Yeah, that's good.
Basically, I trained as a facilitator in a past life at some point.
Yep.
And I noticed, obviously, the future backwards approach is very similar to that. If you had a magic wand, how would your organization look? So I found that quite interesting, and that was being used as a system, because I'm like, oh yeah, how would you know that?
Yeah.
And then we used something that was like an affinity diagram that was quite good to use.
Yep.
And an ease and impact grid. And I was seeing kind of hints in that coming through in some of the teaching there. So I was like, all right, I'm going to have to now delve back into that. I'm sure I've got a folder somewhere. And it's also almost just like being reminded that you do know what you're doing, but you have to
absolutely
be repointed towards it. So thank you for that.
Not at all. I mean, the future backwards exercise, if you check that out on the Cynefin website, there's a lot of really, really good tools and facilitation techniques that they suggest there. And it's used in lots and lots of contexts. The reason I think it's helpful in a digital workshop is that there is a terrible tendency, particularly when it comes to technology, for people to be very bound into where they are and find problems as to why they can't move forward and why they can't make a change. And so the liberating aspect of the future backwards in a technology standpoint is it frees you from that sort of brain freeze of being stuck within the now and not being able to reimagine. And the whole point of a lot of digital technology is to reimagine, because 9 times out of 10, the worst spend of digital technologies is where people take an analog process and replicate it digitally, because they don't seize the opportunity to imagine doing that process in a different way. You just take what you do now and then you just replicate it with a digital tool. And that is the worst implementation model in most cases that you can think of. So the future backwards is actually a good way of starting to say, well, let's just start from a completely different position and see if we can arrive back to where we are now, and then we can map a path to get to that different position. But it's so as a technology audit tool and planning tool, I find it a very useful one. But there's lots of other contexts in which you can use it. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Doreen, are you there? Or are you making tea? She's making tea.
No, I'm here. No.
Now, you were at the start of this, you were thinking you weren't entirely sure what you wanted to get from this. Do you think there's any of these techniques that you can apply in your organization? Because yours is a slightly different organization, isn't it?
Yes, well, I've played around with AI and trying to do transcriptions.
Oh, yeah.
They've been quite interesting. You know, obviously don't recognise Caithness accents and come up with lots of sweary words and things like that. So, you know, it's where I'd been sort of turned off from that. I'll maybe, you know, go back to that again and have a look. The other thing is we write a lot of descriptions and so on, and I quite like the idea of, you know, a starting point then to move on. But, you know, the whole SWOT analysis, that's something, you know, when I was working in education, you know, that's kind of dragged that up again. And I like how, you know, how it's evolved, you know, and you know, just thinking from the whole voluntary organisation, I can, to a certain extent, what we've done is just let things evolve. You know, maybe it's time that we should actually take a look at ourselves and see what our strengths are and where we can move on from that, you know.
You said you've done SWOT analysis in the past. Have you ever done the next step, the TOWS thing?
No, that was why I was interested. Yes, because I thought, well, things have obviously moved on from when you know, that was a sort of regular feature. But yeah,
it's only really rearranging the boxes, so it's not,
yes,
but it brings a different perspective, doesn't it?
Absolutely. No, I thought that was really valuable. Yes, yes.
But SWOTs are one of the reasons of using SWOTs is that they are so familiar that people can readily get to grips with it. It's not as if we're, you know, undertaking a very, very sophisticated approach, but it can be tremendously effective. So
absolutely
good.
No, I found that really useful. Thank you.
Not at all. Not at all. Does anybody else have any further questions? I can see Enrico is there, and Mr. R. Neil Bradley as well. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm trying to think about how. I was just going to talk to someone about SWOT analysis because it's the only thing I kind of recognized that I knew. Actually,
that's okay.
But I thought that was a great place to start for anybody coming in, even in a small way, is to understand the basics of what my strengths and weaknesses are, and how digital technology can look at my opportunities and threats. And I think it's a place where we can I can actually think, okay, where do I try and move forward with this if indeed I dare venture out to do that, or do I stay safe in the knowledge of old school?
Yeah. But no, I mean, you make the perfect point that the attraction of SWOT is people are familiar with it, and it's a place that they can start from. And digital audit sounds very complicated and highfalutin. It's not. If you have a simple framework that you can use, and it gives you a starting point. It won't give you all the answers, but it gives you a framework of analysis that you can use. And if you make it something that somebody can easily step into, they're more inclined to take it on. And I think the findings that you get, whilst they may be high level in the first instance, they can be tremendously insightful ones, and they're the you can use that ghastly expression, but they're the low-hanging fruit and all of that kind of stuff of being able to quickly make some advances. You're on mute, Neil.
The other thing I got from that, Tim, was that when your quick fix solution, I don't know what you called it, but I can imagine that that's entirely what I'd go down the route of doing, seeing the immediate threats and then realizing that everything needs to be started again. And I think that's the sort of thing, it puts people off more than it does actually motivate them. I don't know. I'd be stuck with that.
You would? Okay. Well, I think sometimes it's interesting because, again, one of the points I was trying to make is it's almost impossible to keep abreast of all of the technical developments that are going on across every area, and sometimes just taking the time to say, this piece of my business is the worst piece of it. I just wish I had a solution to it. And you may not know, but there is one. You know, this is the thing. So because there may have been one developed. The one that one of the tools that we've made reference to that I think is a really useful tool is that some of these middleware tools like Zapier. So oftentimes people say, oh, it just drives me mad transferring this data from this spreadsheet into that spreadsheet and then writing an email to them all, or just something like that. This is where these middleware tools like Zapier come in. But there are undoubtedly people that essentially carry on doing these painful transfers and go, oh, I wish there was a solution. And unless they actually undertake the audit, so again, the appeal at the start was, one of the reasons for doing an audit is it will force you to try and address something rather than just keep kind of going on. is that you'll possibly discover that there actually is a solution that you just never knew was there. And so it is this moving feast, and why you want to keep doing this on a regular basis, just to keep progressing.
Yeah, I think that was the beauty of it. Even if it's a kind of, the audit's a beautiful word, isn't it? Because it's different ways of looking at your business and seeing, you know, just because this is working doesn't mean to say it couldn't work better in the best instance, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna have to bite the bullet, I think.
we're trading metaphors here, aren't we? Oh, goodness gracious.
Oh yeah, I'm good at that.
Good stuff. Any further questions at all, or do you want to leave it there? And then, as I say, the point about these events that we put on is that you have the opportunity of listening to some of this stuff, and then to take it away and think about it. And if it prompts thoughts or prompts ideas where you want to come back to us at XpoNorth, we're going to be here and help you through whatever the next stage is. So that's the purpose of these things today. We don't expect all of the questions to emerge and originate in the session. So
Tim, we've got in the chat box from Enrico that he's sorry that he can't use his microphone, as he's in a very busy place at the moment, but saying, I enjoyed a lot of your workshop. For the first time in my life, I could appreciate Bard. Living in EU, Bard can't operate due to GDPR issues.
Well, I suggest then, Enrico, I have a solution for you, okay? And it's called a VPN. And you can pretend that you're not in the EU for a little while, technically speaking. Now that's one. So there we go. That's a perfect example. Enrico's pain point was that he can't resolve this, and there's a potential technical solution that you might want to explore. But of course, Bard is just one of the AI tools. Okay. Oh no, it doesn't, because it hasn't got mine. ChatGPT does, but Bard, I don't believe, needs a telephone number. But I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I'm pretty sure it hasn't got mine. But ChatGPT definitely does. But there are lots, and there are many more of these AI tools that serve a similar purpose to there you go, okie dokie. But VPNs are very powerful ways of masking your location. Now, you can do that for nefarious reasons, but you can also do it for extremely legitimate reasons, when you wish to suggest that you're in a different location. So give it a try, Enrico. See how it works out. But there we go. We used that audit framework, the quick and dirty framework there, and tried to come up with a quick technical solution for you. So, but as I say, Bard is just one of many. There are they emerge almost on a weekly, daily basis. These new AI tools that you can make use of. I happen to quite like Bard. I find it quite a useful one for a variety of reasons. Other people swear by ChatGPT. U.com is another one that I've used that can be very effective. And of course, there are AI tools that are not just text-based. So there are AI tools that will create imagery for you, and a whole range of other outputs. Some people also use these AI tools for even writing software code. So I know people that have been struggling with developing their websites, trying to write an individual little piece of code for a particular function, struggling with doing that, and then utilized an AI tool and have written perfectly acceptable and functioning code using that tool. So you know, these things have many applications. Well, I think we've managed to answer all of the questions, Gems. So the final thing that I will say is, if anybody wants the the SWOT towels workbook that we have, you're very welcome to it. But as you can see, it's a pretty straightforward thing. You know, you could construct it yourself with a pen and paper in no time at all, or you could indeed use a technical tool to do it as well. But if anybody wants it, I'll happily send it to you. If not, it's not a problem at all. But I thank all of you for attending today. I hope it was useful to you and thought-provoking. And if you have further questions after you've had a time to reflect, do feel free to come back to XpoNorth, and we will endeavour to resolve that question, whatever it is. Jenny, I don't know, is there Gemma, is there an official closing statement that you have to make?
Absolutely, of course there is. Thank you ever so much, everybody, for joining us today, and I hope you enjoyed that and found it a valuable use of your time. And thank you so much to Tim for giving up his time today as well. Please do visit our website, www.XpoNorth.co.uk, where you can look at our event section. You can sign up to our newsletter to be kept up to date with future events and news. Also on the website, that is where you will find our video archive, where there's lots of extremely interesting content, as well as our inquiry form for specialist sector support. Also, you can make sure to connect with us on Facebook, X, also known as Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Today's, excuse me, choking on air, I'm so sorry. What I was going to say was, today's session was delivered to you via XpoNorth Digital. XpoNorth Digital is Highlands and Islands Enterprises mechanism for specialist digital support for the creative and heritage economies across the Highlands and Islands region. The project is also delivered by Ironworks Venue. This workshop is part of HIE's Northern Innovation Hub, designed to build on and accelerate business innovation. I can't speak today. And it's funded through the Inverness and Highland City region deal, a joint initiative supported by £315 million of investment from the UK and Scottish governments, Highland Council, HIE and UHI. Thank you ever so much for joining us today, everyone.